ahead and begin. So I would like to welcome each and every one of you. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us on ASNOA University Day 2 on Farm with Nationwide. Today we have with us Holly. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, thanks, Kathy. Good morning, everyone. My name is Holly Busolo, and I am the nationwide sales manager for a large piece of the ASNOA world. Though as I work closely with Kathy and Mike and Kevin in the main office, and also have agencies throughout Indiana, Illinois, pretty much the Midwest. And is responsible for personal line sales as well as farm. And so I've been with Nationwide 10 years. I'm excited to be here and to introduce you to the guru of farm.
He's that way.
Matt Dorr is one of our Nationwide Ag trainers. And so he has been involved in the farm piece for a while, and I'll let him introduce himself. But I appreciate you letting us come in today, and I'm eager to answer any questions or follow up with. If you don't know who your sales manager is and you'd like to further information, please let me know, and I'll help coordinate that.
Great, thank you, right. Matt. Go ahead and say hello, and I wanted to go ahead and introduce yourself. I know Holly introduced you, but just go ahead and say a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Dorr. I am a farm certification training specialist here at Nationwide. So my primary duty is to administer our farm certification program, the basic level of that. We'll actually talk more about that today and what that program entails. Before COVID, I would be usually traveling around to different parts of the country, and we'd be doing our day-and-a-half training sessions in person. Since we've moved that obviously to virtual, and I've spent pretty much the last 7 months in this basement bedroom working and facilitating training. So hopefully we can get out in the field a little sooner rather than later. I have been with Nationwide for about 12 years. I've held positions in service, underwriting, most recently training, obviously. As an underwriter, I was a farm underwriter for about 3.5 years. I had the states of Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, and some Wisconsin thrown in for good measure. So very familiar with our products and our systems. Any questions that you guys have, I guarantee if I don't know the answer, I know somebody who does. And if we have any takeaways from the session, we can definitely give you some answers. But I'm located in Des Moines, Iowa, where we are experiencing the volatility of fall. We were just kind of talking about that. We had snow in October. Last week was in the 70s all week. Now I think 40s. So it's a roller coaster ride, just like always in terms of the season. So excited to be with you guys here today. Happy you could take the time out of your busy schedules to learn more about Nationwide agribusiness, specifically farm. We'll keep it at pretty high level in terms of the things that we talk about today, but again, any questions that you have, feel free to let me know.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. And I'm Kathy Bova, the Vice President of Operations here at ASNOA. And with the ASNOA University, you can see we all got our t-shirts on today. So thanks for supporting the ASNOA t-shirt. All of you, of course, joining today will receive a t-shirt. You just have to email me your t-shirt sizes, and I'll be happy to get that out just for attending today's workshop. So we are putting on these workshops, trying to give you it's more of a workshop feel. So I just want you to keep that in mind. It's open dialogue, open conversation. We need to hear back from you. You know, we're trying to the objective is, to get you to, understand the opportunities that might be within your own agency on selling farm, right? And having these products with Nationwide and certification trainings and things that they have to offer you, and what kind of appetites that they are looking to go after to help you, right, increase that revenue and increase that farm business within your agency. So if it's something that you have obviously an opportunity to grow within your agency, we wanted to make sure we brought you some good education on that and just giving, we did, the agenda is from 10 to noon. I don't know if we'll need that many, that time, but we'll break at the hour. But again, it's open discussion, so we would like to hear from you. Any questions, any concerns, any things that Matt or Holly are going to go over today. We want to know what would help you, or if you need to have, you know, some answers to specific situations that you ran into within selling farm insurance. I can also help you with any of your EPIC questions at the end if we have time, or I also host a commercial lines class every week at asnoa.com. You can always register for those. So we can talk a little bit about that too, because I know that's one of my concerns with Holly and Matt. I was going to bring it up later on, but talking about what downloads, what doesn't download, what needs to be submitted, what kind of apps do we need, you know, and things of that nature. So we do have some agents on here that maybe didn't start going selling farm yet. So this is kind of a good workshop to get them started. And here's what you need to start, right? This is the direction. Here's the different appetites we're looking to go after. Here's what we can do to help you get certified. I think that's a key piece that we're going to look at today, and I'm excited to learn more about that as well. But you know, without further ado, I don't want to take up any more of your time. We are going to record today's session. We'll send out some follow-up as well. But please feel free to chat in, raise your hand, you know, and just know that this is an open workshop. So thank you so much. I appreciate you both taking time out of your busy schedules to put this on for us as well. So without further ado, I think Matt's going to go ahead and take it away. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks again. All right, well, let's jump right in here. I think you should all be able to see the title slide. So just a quick housekeeping item. If I could just have everybody kind of take a look at this disclaimer here quickly, just give you a couple seconds to do that. We will talk a little bit about coverages high level. So this is mostly just indicating that, you know, I'm not claims, basically. So if any type of claim situation arises based on anything we said here today, that will be investigated by a claims associate. And that should be good. So a little bit of the agenda that we're going to talk about today is the first thing we're going to talk about is identifying opportunities and talking about farm insurance, why you should write farm with Nationwide, basically. The second thing, we'll talk about some of our products, some of our differentiators in terms of products, as well as just the company in general, some selling points. We'll then do a target market review. We'll talk about our farm certification program, and then I'll show you some more training and resources that are out there. Probably end up getting into that when we get into agency quoting, since a lot of that is contained within Agent Center. All right, so when we talk about farm insurance at Nationwide, we first really like to bring up the opportunity that exists out there to write farm. So this is a map comprised of USDA data showing the number of farms per county in the United States. So as you can see, you kind of have your usual suspects through the Midwest and West Coast in terms of the big farming states. But what this represents is 2.1 million farms, and that equates to be about $4 billion in direct written premium. So when you think about it, each one of these farmers that's represented in this map, they need farm insurance, and they need that trusted farm advisor to walk them through that process. You know, some of the challenges, making sure that they're insured adequately for all the risks that they have going on in their operation. And this also kind of represents how vast this opportunity is. So I think farm is thought of a lot of times as being more of a niche product, but the opportunity is such that we really like to encourage agents to explore this space. And some of the things to think about, I think, from a standpoint of selling and targeting farm business, you know, looking at this map, you know, seeing where you're located, you know, what's the opportunity to write farm in your state? How much ag opportunity is in your area? What type of risks are there around you to write? and what type of risks are you comfortable writing? So some people grew up on a farm. Some people might have grown up on a hog farm and be very comfortable in that space. They might have a lot of connections. Some people might not have any farm exposure at all. So kind of got to develop that knowledge base, kind of got to develop that ability to walk the walk and talk the talk, basically. And we'll get into farm certification a little bit later, but that is one of the places where we encourage agents to go to kind of develop that ability to be that trusted farm advisor. So in talking about targeting farm business, who are these farmers? What, from a demographic standpoint, what do they look like? So I put together some high-level demographic data to show you here. So 98% of U.S. farms are operated by families. Now, the makeup of these entities that own the farm are going to be different, vary from farm to farm. But you're going to have individual named insureds. You're going to have partnerships. You're going to have corporations and LLCs that are made up of these family members. I've written large policies that have between 20, 30, even more named insureds. You've got corporations that own the land. You've got corporations that own the equipment. But still, at the end of the day, the ownership of these farms really is still concentrated in the individuals that make up those entities. In terms of age, 25% of farmers have operated less than 10 years, and the average age is 46. Now, I think that's going to vary quite a bit from state to state. I don't know if I believe that the average age of farmers in Iowa is 46. But this kind of goes back to something that we'll talk about a little bit, and I'll send some follow-up on this as well. When we talk about value adds in terms of what Nationwide can offer, a big thing that is going on right now with that farming age group getting higher and higher is succession planning, and how farmers can plan for the future to give their farm or get that farm to the next generation. There's a lot of tax implications. There's a lot of financial implications that can go along with that. And we actually have a business unit that's devoted to assisting farmers in that space. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go, but I will send some information on that as well as follow-up. So another thing that I wanted to point out as you're looking at farms is the fact that farmers do market some food locally. So obviously the majority of farms, they sell their raw goods wholesale to some big companies out there, but there are farmers that are finding new revenue streams. Maybe they're doing some processing of their own farm products, selling that in more of a retail capacity. Maybe they're selling it directly to grocery stores. That is happening more and more, and you're going to see that more and more. And one thing to think about is that there is a definition of farming when you're looking at a farm policy, and a lot of that type of stuff does exist outside that definition of farming. So we have to be better at wrapping our heads around what those risks truly are and making sure that we are insuring those adequately. Also, just to give you an idea, farm demographics, 36% of US farm operators are female, and 56% of all farms have at least one female decision maker. So, and I think that's something that has been changing and will continue to change as the farm market evolves. In terms of what types of farms are out there, kind of in your backyard, what you see, there's some that are going to be really more of a nationwide exposure and opportunity. There's some that are going to be very hyper local, and you guys probably already have a pretty good idea of the types of farms that are in your communities, but I just kind of wanted to show some more high level USDA data around that. So, cattle and calves, you can see based on this, hopefully you can see that pretty well. We've got a lot of cattle and calf farms kind of scattered around. I mean, you have places that have heavier concentration, but you can see that those operations exist in a lot of different places in the United States. Poultry, I like to always point out poultry. I used to write a lot of it as an underwriter in the Southeast. It has a very heavy concentration in the southeast going up to, the east, northeast, and east coast. See a little bit of it out in California, but not very much. Another very highly concentrated market. I'd have agents in some of these markets that, I'd ask them, do we have anything else any other types of risks? And they just laugh. I mean, it's all poultry in their communities, and that's basically all we would write. Hogs and pigs, again, you can see is very concentrated in certain parts of the country. Iowa, especially where we're from, you can throw a rock and hit several hog confinements. So they're all over the place. Switching from animals, just to some row crop and other farm products, harvested corn, you can see that that's concentrated a lot in the Midwest. Iowa, again, Nebraska, Illinois. Soybeans, very similar in terms of where those are grown. But again, I wanted to show you one that is more kind of hyper local. So rice, grow a lot of rice in that Mississippi Delta region down in Arkansas. So I have ended up writing a lot of rice farms. You can see besides California, there's really not a lot of rice grown in other places, at least to warrant being on this map. So again, I just kind of wanted to give you guys an idea of some high level demographics of, maybe what that farmer looks like, where some of those commodities that are common will be grown and harvested, and where those opportunities would be to write that stuff. Any questions on any of that, maybe before we go on to talk about some of our products, some of our differentiators?
I don't see anything in there yet. Anybody have any questions? Feel free to raise your hand. You can unmute yourselves. I mean, Steve, if you want to mute yourself, I had muted you, but if you want to mute yourself, you can at least open up your own mic at your own time. And Todd, too, if you want to just go mute yourself, you can unmute yourself too for any conversation. Anybody have any questions?
Sure. I will just keep plugging away.
Yeah, doing great. Thank you.
All right. So, in talking about the company, some of our products, some of our differentiators, we like to talk about the value that we provide to the agent as well. And, these are a lot of reasons we've heard over the years why agents like to explore the farm space, and specifically why they like to explore it with Nationwide. And number one seems to always be on this list is reaching your goals. So farm sales count as commercial production. That's always kind of a big one, and to diversify the book within the agency by starting to write farm. Higher than average premiums. So a farm account is generally going to have a higher premium than maybe your Main Street commercial account or your personal lines package. You go out on the farm, these guys have buildings, equipment, they have a lot of stuff, and the premium kind of starts ticking up relative to that. Loyalty is always a big one as well. Our policy retention for farm has historically been above 90%. And I think the last figure that I saw might be 92%. Now that can be kind of a double-edged sword. Farmers tend to be a rather loyal bunch. You go out on the farm and they have maybe all Ford, all Chevy, their equipment's all green or all red. So can be a little bit of a double-edged sword maybe to woo them away from their current carrier or current agent. But again, I mean, once you have that business, you have a good chance of retaining it. Farm workers comp. So we do offer workers comp on farm accounts in these states. So that can be used to round out accounts that warrant having a workers comp policy. Cross-selling, kind of in the same vein as workers comp. I mean, chances are if you write the farm, which our farm policy contains property and liability, chances are if you write that, you're going to have a pretty good chance to write the auto, and you're going to have a pretty good chance to write the umbrella and maybe any of those other lines that they have that they need coverage for, like work comp, and even some of the other stuff that the company writes. I mean, our personal lines, obviously, if they have needs power sports policies for some toys, if they maybe need financial products even. So a lot of cross-selling can go on in these types of operations. So CHS program, this is something that's changing quite a bit, but I guess the what I would say about that is, we have some relationships with certain organizations that if an insured is maybe part of that, they could get some benefits. Book roll opportunities. We have an ease of doing business and a streamlined process for book rolls. I'll talk more about ease of doing business when we talk about kind of underwriting and how policies are maybe structured and looked at. And then the power of the brand always comes up too. So, leveraging the Nationwide brand and everything that Nationwide does as a carrier can go a long way with our agents. And there always are some others too. Sometimes show this slide a lot in Farm Cert, and somebody will, want to sometimes talk about why people are there, and people will be like, "Oh, my boss made me do it." So that's kind of where the other comes in. Just a quick question, if people want to maybe throw an answer into the chat, possibly. So do you guys know where Nationwide ranks on the list of top writers of farm insurance in the U.S.?
I'll guess number one.
Whoa! Correct.
This
Yeah,
is
so
Scott
Nationwide.
Loveland.
What's that?
This is Scott Loveland.
Hi,
Yeah,
Scott. I polled it. I wanted everybody to give us their answer.
oh, you did.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. All right, everybody go ahead and give us the answer. Where does Nationwide rank on the list of top farmers carriers in the country? You should all be able to see that poll. That's so funny. And I'm going to go ahead and close it and share it. So there you go. And the correct answer is, Scott?
Number one.
Number one.
Very good. Very good.
I use that in my sales presentation all the time to affiliate candidates. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so like we just said, I mean, Nationwide is the number one writer of farm in the country. So, how did we get there? What sets us apart? We like to describe how we got there in three main areas: so our presence, experience, and our products. So we'll talk about each of these individually. So in terms of our presence, we write in 43 of the 50 states. We do not write insurance in Oklahoma, Louisiana, Florida, Massachusetts, or New Jersey. Also Alaska and Hawaii. I keep waiting for them to open up Hawaii so that I can start doing farm certification classes out there. That'd be pretty sweet. But, some of the benefits to having this broad of a geographical footprint: we are located in areas that are prone to disasters, and we're located in areas that aren't. So, this really does allow us to spread out some of that risk and that rate, maybe more so than what a local mutual or a local carrier could in some of those disaster prone areas. Now, this year it might not seem like this is such a benefit because kind of been hit by all sides. You've got this hurricane season plus wildfires, and the derecho that went across Iowa was a huge issue for us. So, but generally speaking, we can weather, no pun intended, some of these cat type losses a little bit better than other carriers could. Another benefit to this is we've seen it all almost looking around the country. We've dealt with any type of risk you can probably imagine, and we've seen that variety in agriculture, and we have a policy that's designed to accommodate it. Our base form does include some coverages that maybe a carrier that uses an off-the-shelf ISO product wouldn't be able to insure on their base form. They might have to endorse some things. So we might be able to cover some things without endorsement that another carrier wouldn't necessarily be able to. Also, a huge benefit of this is that we can write in multiple states. As you can see, if you've got risks in border areas, we can accommodate a lot of that. I think When I was an underwriter, I had a risk that spanned 5 different states, and that was something that we could accommodate that not a lot of other carriers would necessarily be able to do. In terms of our experience, so we have 100+ years of experience protecting the agricultural community. Nationwide was founded by the Ohio Farm Bureau to provide cheaper auto insurance for farmers, and it's evolved obviously into what it is today. But it really has its roots in agriculture, and I think that combined with the fact, this last point here, that we have leaders and associates with agricultural backgrounds really goes a long way in talking about who we are as a company, what our mission is, where we put our outreach dollars. We have underwriters, AVPs, all the way up to our board. We have people that still actively farm on the side. So, they have skin in the game. They care about the industry. They care about safety. We have programs that they've developed to help farmers, rural road safety programs, grain bin safety. I'm going to send some grain bin safety information along as follow-up as well. But we've developed a program to help farmers work more safely around grain bins, and agents can actually submit recommendations for fire departments around the country that might warrant us giving them a grain tube, so they can actually, those have gone on to actually save lives in that space. So that's really something that's great, and it's something that we as a company care a lot about is safety out there on the farm. As you can see on this, we've already mentioned that Nationwide is the top writer farm in the U.S. These numbers are a little old, but they still hold pretty true. Farm Bureau, that relationship is going to look a little bit different depending on what state you're in. There's some states where we compete head-to-head with Farm Bureau, and there's some states where we have a partnership with Farm Bureau and are more or less their preferred writer. So like I said, depending on what state you're in, they might be our top competitor. If not, then it's going to be somebody else. In terms of our products, so as an agent with a farm contract, you have access to these 4 main products. So Country Choice, this is more commonly referred to as our hobby farm product. AgriChoice, this is our bread and butter. This is the main farm product that we write. Really the main difference between these two that you're going to find in terms of eligibility and whatnot is usually going to be dependent on what the main source of income is for the insured. So if their main source of income is farming, chances are it's going to fall into this AgriChoice bucket. If their main source of income is not from farming, maybe they have a day job, they're doing a lot of farming on the side, or just doing some farming on the side, then the chances are they'll fall into this Country Choice bucket. But there is some wiggle room with that, maybe dependent on how big farm is or what type of exposures they have. So if there's questions about Country Choice versus AgriChoice, I'll send a little bit more information on that as well. And you can always get in touch with your underwriter, and they can help you kind of maybe decide what bucket these should be in. One question I commonly get on AgriChoice policies is that is there a minimum premium? Is there a maximum premium? And no, it really comes down to what they're doing. I've had AgriChoice policies that have been a couple $1,000s. I've had AgriChoice policies that have been a couple $100,000. So this is a very versatile product in terms of the stuff that we can put on there. Now, AgriChoice Plus, as you can see here in the picture, we've got a pumpkin patch. So this AgriChoice Plus product is primarily intended for farmers that are doing something. They're farming, and they're also doing something outside the scope of farming. Something that might require a general liability policy or a commercial property form. Some of the examples that we commonly fall back on is maybe a vineyard winery. So you have the farmer that has the farming exposure from growing grapes, and then they're taking those grapes, turning them into wine and selling that, and which is more of a commercial exposure at that point. Another example could be a dairy. Maybe you had a farmer that was prior selling their milk wholesale and now is taking some of that milk, turning it into cheese, turning it into ice cream, and maybe now they're selling that, which is now more of a commercial exposure. So those are more or less the types of risks that they generally look at. They can also do a little bit of maybe small commercial ag type exposures that don't have a farm attached. So maybe you've got a farmer, well, not a farmer, but maybe you have a risk that all they do is custom harvesting for others. Maybe they kind of go around, they just need coverage for liability and that equipment. They don't have a farm. This Ag Plus product could take a look at something like that. Custom Solutions Food and Beverage. This is our food team. So this is for risks that are purely a food manufacturer with no farm attached. So this would be a company that sources ingredients to make something like bread or granola bars or something like that. So and the way that this is segmented down when you're looking to submit a piece of business, we have a farm policy, or I'm sorry, we have farm underwriters that would handle Country Choice and Agri-Choice. We have an Agri-Choice Plus underwriters that would handle these type of exposures, and we actually have food underwriters that would handle these types of exposures. So, if you have something come up and you're not sure what bucket it would fall into, it's always a good idea to maybe just start with your farm underwriter, and they could always be able to figure out where to place it for you if there's a question. I'm not sure, did we have a couple questions pop in the chat?
Yes, we do. Jeremy, do you have an option for someone who has farmland, they cash rent?
Yeah, so someone who rents their farm out. So we do consider that as having farm receipts. So yes, we can write those.
Okay. And Jana asked, do you things like agritainment, picking produce event and event on site, etc.? Do you do those?
We do. So yeah, we do write agritourism exposures. What's that?
I love doing those events.
I know everybody does, right?
Right?
Really, what
Those
it comes,
are the best.
yeah, and what it comes down to with those is the types of exposures. So there's one up the street from me. Well, not up the street exactly, but a little ways north where a lot of people go to around here, where they have the bounce pillows, they have the pumpkin patch, they have the slides, they have pick your own apples. I'm trying to think what else. They have concessions, so they're serving food. Those are the types of things that are going to be scrutinized with that. So, we have endorsements available for kind of U-pick type operations when people are coming on site and maybe doing some of that. That's receipts based. I will say when you've got more of the exposure of what they do is purely agritainment, as opposed to, sometimes you've got a risk that maybe they farm, it's mostly a farm, and maybe a month out of the year they do a little bit of agritainment, like a pumpkin patch. That can be more of a farm risk. But if you got the places that are mostly agritainment or all agritainment, that's going to fall into this Agri-Choice Plus program more. And we do have some things that are ineligible. So if you've got like pumpkin chunkin, zip lines, things like that, things that can hurt and maim are generally going to be something that we're probably not going to write on that program. But we do look at those types of risks. But they're challenging because when you've got the ones that are doing a lot of different stuff, you've got to structure your GL accordingly, and it can be kind of a challenge to wrap your head around everything that's going on out there. But yes, we do write that stuff. Good. Well, let's keep going if there's no other questions right now. So speaking more about products, so the farm policy, like I said, contains coverage for farm property and farm liability, but we can also round out accounts with the following products as well. So like I said, in terms of cross-selling, we've got business auto, farm umbrella. For those Agri-Choice Plus exposures that need it, we've got commercial property form, commercial general liability form, inland marine, workers' comp. And you might have instances where you need an inland marine or a GL on a regular farm policy, and we can do that. That doesn't necessarily make it an AgriChoice Plus policy or a more commercial in nature. So commonly in my old territory, we would have people that were doing maybe a little bit of custom spraying of others, crop spraying, and at the bare minimum, if you've got somebody doing that, you will need a GL if it's eligible. So, we had some farm policies with GLs on them for people that were doing some spraying for others for a fee. You might have an inland marine situation where maybe you have a farmer who's doing a little bit of hauling of grain for others, and they need some non-owned cargo coverage for that. We can look at those types of things on an inland marine, and like I said, that doesn't necessarily make it an Ag Plus policy or more of a commercial policy. But with our appetite, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, and the breadth of products that we offer, we can write a lot of different stuff. I also wanted to talk about, in terms of a differentiator with the company, just some of the advice that we can give as well. So from an underwriting expertise standpoint, we have experienced, knowledgeable underwriters in place that are familiar with their territories. They're familiar with the areas that we're competitive in. They're familiar with the areas that maybe we're not, some of the challenges that come along with these different geographies. So we have those underwriters in place to do that. Also, they're looking over your quotes and maybe finding redundancies or helping find areas where, when I was an underwriter, and I'll show you this when we're an agent center too. There was one instance in a lot of quotes that came in where agents thought we were maybe high, and underwriting can catch some of those things. Maybe something was classified a little bit wrong, and underwriting can help find redundancies in coverage that maybe will save some premium on quotes as well. Access to risk management tools. I can show you guys on Agent Center there's a website out there that has a link to a risk management website, and there's a lot of great stuff out on there. So I mean, if you've got an insured that is looking to put a safety program in place, there's tools in order to show them how to do that. There's videos on proper forklift handling. I saw something out there about there's a few questions where it will get an insured or a farmer information on whether they need a secondary fuel containment system. So, stuff that wouldn't even necessarily prevent a loss, but stuff that can maybe prevent a fee or something like that. So a lot of value add that comes from that website and our risk management folks. And land is your legacy. Again, I mentioned this in terms of a value add. We have a team that can help farmers that are looking to pass their farm on to the next generation and kind of assist them with those legal challenges and financial challenges that come with that. Next, in terms of products, I just kind of wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about general eligibility when we're looking at a farm policy. So one of the main things that comes up is receipts, I would say, especially when we're looking at differences between hobby farms, personal lines, what belongs in farm versus personal lines. One thing that we require in farm is that we want that insured to be actively farming or have an agricultural interest as an owner or a tenant. And to extrapolate a little bit further on that, we do want there to be farm receipts and actual farming going on. So if you've got somebody outside of town, they have a garden, that's not really a farm. So sometimes it goes between personal lines a little bit and farm. If personal lines doesn't want to write something because it's too far out or it's a PC10, sometimes there's a little back and forth there. But if you're questioning it, I would always get in touch with your farm underwriter to kind of ask where they think something might be. But we do more or less require that there be some actual farming going on and some farm receipts associated with risk. We also require there be a owner-occupied dwelling on premise. So if the insured rented a dwelling that wasn't their own, we would, sorry about that. We would still require that. You know, we can structure the policy that it's more like a HO4 renters, but we do require the owner's liability or personal liability and contents in the dwelling. Now, there are instances in terms of, you know, if you've got a risk where maybe that's not going to be possible, maybe it's a larger corporately owned farm and maybe everybody's homes are insured elsewhere, you might want to just ask your underwriter about that. You know, we can look at things like that, but I will say generally we want to write that owner occupied dwelling. Also, condition construction of farm buildings. We want all farm buildings to be in usable condition and constructed properly. So if you have some buildings on premise that are looking kind of rough, that might not be an automatic no, but it might turn into more of a conversation with underwriting. So you might be talking about what coverages are available, what coverages are applicable, you know, things like that. And we'll talk a little bit about that in quoting as well, maybe how you as an agent, when you're quoting, want to maybe take a look at that, and how underwriting might take a look at that as well. So the policy is really divided up into personal exposures and farm exposures. So we're not going to talk a lot about liability, but the liability form is structured in kind of a similar manner. You know, there's a liability piece for the individual named insured, and then also for the farming operation. So in terms of the personal exposures on the farm policy, we're looking at coverage A, dwelling, coverage B, appurtenant structures, coverage C, household personal property, and coverage D, loss of use. And then on the farm side, what that equates to is coverage E, or scheduled farm personal property. So if you're scheduling things like tractors, equipment, farm products like harvested grain, seeds, livestock, or we have the option for the coverage F, unscheduled farm personal property blanket. So this is where you just put in a limit for a blanket for a certain amount of farm personal property coverage that you want. And again, when we get to the quote part, I will kind of show you how to add both a piece of scheduled personal property and how to add a blanket, and maybe talk a little bit about some of the differences between doing that. And then we've got coverage G, so farm buildings and structures. And that's, from a property standpoint, that's really how the policy is broken down. Now, I'm not going to get into too deep on products today, but I did want to just kind of show you what some of the coverage differentiators are when it comes to nationwide agribusiness versus some competitors. Equipment breakdown coverage. This is a pretty big differentiator for us. We include equipment breakdown coverage for both the personal property side, coverages A through D, and the farm side automatically. So you're not going to see an option to add it. You're not going to see it on a deck page. It is built into our rates automatically, and we found that that's a pretty big coverage differentiator as opposed to other carriers. For equipment, we offer coverage for cab glass with no deductible, foreign object damage. If you have maybe it's a combine going through the field, picks up a rock or a hubcap and does damage to it, that's covered under our policy. Some other carriers actually force insureds to maybe buy that back, or maybe they don't cover it at all. We offer damage during towing and hitching, so hooking up two pieces of equipment, if there's damage done during that process, maybe coverage for that. Contact with roadbed or ground, so uneven ground. If you've got maybe a combine, again, that hits some uneven ground there, going from the road to the field, there can be coverage for that. We've got rented and leased farm machinery, so some automatic coverage in the policy for rented and leased farm machinery, 100,000 with special perils up to 60 days. Coverage for borrowed equipment, rental reimbursement, up to 1,000 per day, 10,000 per occurrence. Newly purchased machinery, there's automatic coverage for that, and livestock broad plus perils. So not going to get too big into, like I said, livestock, but we do offer some livestock specific perils that can vary a little bit in terms of maybe how other carriers look at livestock. So long story short, I guess with this is, when you're stacking up nationwide against other carriers, just make sure we're doing an apples to apples comparison and be aware of some of these things, because there's a lot of times where maybe not all of these would be included in another policy, and just be aware of where we're different when doing an apples to apples comparison. I think I got a little bit ahead of myself. This was actually where the poll was supposed to be.
I was just going to say, I'm going to go ahead and launch it just to make sure everybody got it. In this way, they understand what, I'll go ahead and launch it right now. So what is considered a nationwide coverage differentiator for farm? And we'll give you all a few moments to put your answer in. All right, I'm gonna go, everybody voted. I'm gonna go ahead and close that out and share. So voila, 100% said all of the above.
There we go.
There you go.
Good job.
Fantastic.
Good job.
Great job, everybody.
All right. Then let's jump into, so we've talked a lot about products. So what kind of markets do we want to target with those products? So let's talk about target market. So our target market really begins with the family farm, and over time has evolved as obviously the farm economy has evolved as well. So traditionally, we were involved in all these typical exposures like hay, row crop, fruits, grains, vegetables, dairy, cattle, equine, but since have evolved into things like, as you can see, custom farming, your poultry, hog confinements, you pick, like somebody mentioned, some agritainment, people going on to the farm, even beekeeping, agritourism, vineyards, wineries, tobaccos, tree farms, and this is by no means an all-inclusive list. So some of the things that are outside of our target market, farms with vacant or unoccupied dwellings generally, but I would always ask your underwriter if you've got something like that going on and are looking for any type of coverage. Exotic animals is maybe a kind of tough to put a definition on. In the policy, if you look and you see how livestock is defined, we write a lot of our hooved friends, we write poultry, some other things like even, like I said, bees and stuff like that. And then there's kind of a area for other animals. So it kind of comes down to some underwriter discretion. I will say, things like big cats, stuff like that, obviously we wouldn't write. But if you've got a question on something, again, your underwriter can be a good resource on stuff that we'd write. I actually did have, I think in Alabama, I had a risk come across my desk that had a big cat on it. And it was like, no, sorry about that. I don't know if there's any fence was big enough for it, but public-private airstrips, generally something that we might not write, grain elevators, and ethanol plants. So those are the types of risks that might be served on a product not necessarily the farm policy. And again, this is by no means all encompassing, this target markets. These are just some of the common ones. As this industry continues to change, farmers will always find new revenue streams, new ways to make money. We will continue to evolve with that. So, we appreciate your guys' feedback on what you're seeing out there too. That gives us an opportunity to get in touch with our product folks, see if maybe there's a product we should be writing, or maybe we need to change policy wording endorsements based on some of the trends in the industry. So we do rely on you guys for that. So just to give you a little bit more specifics on some target markets, under AgriChoice, that's pretty much what I already listed, but Ag Plus, some of the things that they generally write, things like grower, packers, shippers, dairy processing, seed dealers, fertilizer dealers, farm stores, agritourism, so those agritourism exposures that are more commercial in nature, less farm in nature, feedlots, some fish farms, things like that. Specialty ag, that's what the Custom Solutions Food and Beverage used to be called. Couldn't find an updated marketing document.
Matt, did you see Brandon's question? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, sorry.
Will you cover hog confinement or custom hog farms?
When you say custom hog farms, you mean somebody that is a contract grower, or
Feel free to
like
unmute yourself, Brandon, too.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I've got some guys, they probably have about 5 barns, probably about, I don't know, 300, 500 head of hogs out there. And they more or less feed them, take care of them, then send them out to whenever it's time to butcher. But they kind of babysit them, I guess, from when they get them until they're ready to go to market.
Yeah, that's pretty common in terms of hogs as well as poultry. So, I mean, a lot of these guys are contract growers for the big integrators. So your Tyson and, whoever else these big companies are. So, those companies will deliver the piglets or the chicks. And then our farmer, like you said, kind of contract grows them. And then when they're ready to go to market, the company comes and picks them up again. That's pretty common, and yes, we do write those types of exposures.
And will you handle the barns as well? Cover the actual barns?
Yeah. So I mean, that's really what that's really, they're really more of a property exposure. That's the main exposure is barns. We in those situations generally the insured doesn't own the animals, so we're not insuring the animals for property. The company that they're growing for is the one that owns those animals and kind of takes care of that exposure, I should say.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. So specialty ag, again, this is now called, this is the food team, that custom food and beverage. But just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that they look at, dairy processing, commercial bakeries, meat processors, poultry processing. Again, these would be exposures where there is no actual farm policy. There's no farm exposure. These are strictly just food manufacturers. Now to talk a little bit more about farm certification. So this is, more or less what I do. Was out in the field prior, not so much anymore, but there's 3 levels of farm certification that I wanted to let you guys know about, and hopefully, maybe pique your interest on finding out more about what we do and what we offer in this space. So basic farm certification, that's the one that I primarily train. What this is we have agents in basic that we're just trying to get comfortable with our base product. I've taught several of these now, and I've got people in these classes that have been writing farm for 20 plus years, and they're now just writing with Nationwide. I need to know more about Nationwide. I've got people in these classes that don't know anything about insurance at all, and their boss wanted them to go. Maybe they're taking over the farm book. I've had people that's almost their first day on the job. They're there to be trained. So we've got a really wide variety of people in these classes. So we're all kind of trying to level set, get everybody's feet wet, get comfortable with property form and the liability form. Now, there are some production requirements that go along with certification. For basic, we need a book size of 30,000, and we need 5 new policies a year. And what that means in terms of 5 new policies, it's not necessarily 5 new accounts. When we're talking about policies, if you have a farm package that includes the farm policy, auto, and umbrella, that would count as 3 policies. So as you can imagine, you could have one account that would satisfy this requirement. So you could have a farm, auto, umbrella, maybe an inland marine, and a work comp. that would satisfy this requirement. Now, master certification, this was more of a geographically targeted class. So this would take into account risks that were near the place where we were holding the class. It would talk about maybe how to cover farms as they evolve, how they vertically integrate, what endorsements to use, what products to use. So it was a lot more in depth in terms of maybe how to ensure some of these complex risks. The production requirements for that, book size of 200,000, 12 new policies a year. And then elite. Elite is, as you can see, book size of 1 million, 25 new policies. There's no classroom setting for elite. This is more of a conversation. So meeting with company leaders on what's going on, what kind of trends you're seeing out there, finding out what's going on in the company, getting feedback on some of the goings on in the industry and what we're seeing out there in the space. So in terms of the future of the program, we are doing basic virtually right now. So if we have people that are interested in something like that, I'll show you the website you can go to. It's connected to Agent Center as well, where you can sign up for classes. We have several still out there for the rest of the year, but we are doing all these virtually for the foreseeable future, I guess. And master, is a little bit tougher because we tried to geographically target these. So we are developing a master class that will not be geographically targeted, but that will be held virtually as well. So there's been a pretty high demand for that, and that should be coming in the next few months or so. But anybody that's interested, we do have classes still coming up through the end of the year.
And would you be able to share that? Is there a schedule on that, Matt? And
Yep.
I did post a question. Does anybody have a farm certification that's in this workshop today? I was just curious. And then Todd had a question on confinement.
Yeah, I did.
Sure. Yeah.
Go ahead, Todd. Jamie has a master certification. I thought somebody might have. Thanks,
I just had a quick question on confinement. You have collapse with your hog and your poultry, correct?
Yes. So we do have, there's some underwriting guidelines out there for states that have snow load potential. Right. So, but yeah, I mean, generally we're going to be able to offer broad or special, which would include collapse and would both include weight of ice and snow. So it just kind of depends, again, on age of the building. If it's in a snow load state, there might be some guidelines that would dictate what type of coverage we would be able to offer.
Yeah, I'm in Southwest Florida. We have a lot of poultry here.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep,
and
you should.
I rode a lot of poultry before, so that's going to be kind of one of my targets.
Okay. Yeah, we do ride a lot of poultry in Missouri. So yeah, that's good.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, this is Scott Loveland. Todd's a brand new affiliate with us here in Missouri, came from the Missouri Farm Bureau. It's going to be a really good producer for us in that market. So
great.
I don't know if you'll be the one working with him or someone else, but I'd love to get him up to speed pretty rapidly.
Your underwriter will be the one that would be working with you closely on those types of risks. So I'm not positive. Do you guys roll up through a single underwriter, or are you guys segmented out based on your geography? Do you roll up through a Missouri underwriter? That Tyler Anderson? Okay. Yeah, he's been in Missouri for a while. He writes. He'll be able to get you up to speed there.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Looks like there was a question. Could I send a sheet showing the benefits of the elite certification and where we are as far as close to 1 million? Yeah, I can send some farm certification information. I would have to track down to see where you guys are at. Let me have that as a takeaway. There's some reports we can run that I think we could track that down. Good question.
And Todd, Matt, I wanted to just say, I think we have all those questions answered. I know we're approaching the 11 o'clock, so if you want to finish up with the certification, then what we can do is take a 10-minute break and then come back.
Yeah, that's perfect because then I can just, most of what I was going to show after this would just be part of that demonstration anyway. So yeah, just to finish up with farm certification. So just to show you just, in terms of what that looks like in terms of our agency force. So the number of agents certified versus non-certified, less than 25% of our agents are farm certified. But as you can see, they make up about 75% of our new farm direct written premium. So we've run reports over the years, and these trends have always seemed to hold true that agents that become certified, their direct written premium more than doubles, their policies in force nearly triple. There's higher consumer enthusiasm scores overall. So it's really better for the agent, it's better for us, the company, it's better for the insured. A lot of people come out of certification and they can, again, kind of walk the walk, talk the talk, and be that trusted farm advisor for their customers. Again, I think what I'll do is I just had a couple other slides that are going to be stuff I can basically was going to show you in Agent Center anyway. So yeah, if we want to take a break, that would be perfect.
This would be a good time. Okay, yeah, we're right at the hour, 11 o'clock Central Time or 11:01. So if we can come back in 10 minutes, say 11:10 Central Time, that would be great. Everybody can, stretch their legs a little bit. And maybe, are you standing this whole time, Matt? I was going to say maybe you can sit down for 10 minutes and then come back.
I have a standing desk and it saved my life. So
yeah, I have one too. I try to do both, a little bit of both, but sometimes I still need to sit down and get it all done. But I got to get myself used to doing that.
Yeah.
All right. See y'all in 10 minutes. Thank you so much. All right, I'll give everybody a minute to get back. Are you back with us, Matt?
I am back.
Matt is back. There we go. Everybody back? You want to just raise your hand if you're back? So I know I got you. Only a couple of you are back. All right, here we go. All right, we got everybody. All right, Matt.
Are you seeing just my front page of Agent Center here? Or it says Agent
Yes.
Center Workspace?
Yep.
Okay.
That's what we're seeing.
All right,
So
very
now
good.
you're going to take us through a quote.
Yeah, I'm going to show a couple things here on the front page of Agent Center that I kind of mentioned, and then yeah, we'll go through a quote that I've kind of already got going. Just kind of show you guys some tips and tricks. Maybe there's a few quirky things in there that I'll show you too that can sometimes trip agents up. So I like to point some of those things out. So this is the front page of Agent Center for anybody who is unfamiliar with it. Our quoting options, and there's several other options, are up here in this blue menu, but I wanted to first show you down along the bottom of my screen some of the options that are available down here. So under Learning Center, one thing I was going to mention in my presentation was some of the other opportunities that are out there for training, onboarding, things like that. So if you click on the Learning Center tab under Agribusiness Farm, you'll see options for live virtual training and on-demand learning. So this is just onboarding that we have outside of our farm certification program. So this will take you to our Fusion site. Under onboarding, you'll see options for live events. So me and the other farm cert trainers throughout the month will do, here's an intro to AgriChoice Plus, some product training on farm property and liability, a little bit deeper dive than obviously what we talked about here today. An Agent Center tutorial similar to what I'll show you here in a minute, and then a presentation about nationwide agribusiness as a whole. That's a lot of what's in this one is kind of some of the stuff that I've talked about today already. And we also have on-demand sessions. So if you need to take these at your leisure, there's some information on target markets, again, product, property, liability. There's some farm walkthroughs. There's some intro materials on farm cert, also cost estimators. So if you're writing business and underwriting is asking you for cost estimators and you need to know how to do that, we've got some modules out here that can help you complete those cost estimators. Also, I wanted to show you this site. So the Farm and Ranch Learning Center. A lot of our onboarding materials are mirrored out on this page, but also this is the page where you would go to sign up for farm certification. So I'll send a schedule to Kathy afterwards of the classes that are still going on this year, but this is where you would actually sign up for it. So agribusiness farm certification. Won't get too far into this, but then it'll ask you which one, if you're doing basic, master or elite. So elite, I mean, there's not going to be any sessions out there, I think, upcoming for master or elite, obviously, since we're still working on virtual options for that. But if you click on basic, you'll see the options that are out there throughout the rest of the year, and that's where you would sign up for that. Also, I wanted to show quickly this farm agent resource website is also in this area. There is a ton of information on just all things farm. So marketing information, how to get started writing farm. So, there's going to be some redundancy there and some of the things that I've talked to you about today, but marketing, some of those member relationships I mentioned, organizations that we have relationships with, sales contests going on, information on farm cert, different coverage options that are out there, underwriting, so underwriting updates, about farm and ranch, and then risk management. This is where you would get to that website that I told you about, the My Insight Online, that can help, be that value add for insureds that are looking to, maybe start a safety program, things like that. So I kind of wanted to show you that stuff before I got into a quote. Now, to begin a quote, obviously click that get a quote button. But before I show you that, I did want to say for anybody who has any farm business out there, we have developed by kind of popular demand, we have developed a system in order to make changes to accounts. So a self-service option. Prior to this, most changes were sent into processing or to underwriting. And then there could be some setup time for processing to get those tasks set up, completed. Well, there's a self-service option out here for that now. Nothing's going to show up in a kind of a test environment, but if you clicked on that, it would show you under your agency code here, it would show you all of your accounts sitting here. And then there is under this actions button, under amendment, you can go in and actually self-service your accounts. Now, some of those will actually be completed within 24 hours. So if you have mortgage changes, add, delete vehicles, drivers, add, delete liability only locations on a farm, as long as it checks all the boxes when you submit those will automatically go through with a macro overnight. So that can save a lot of time. Also, there's a free form option in there where you can submit any change that you want, attach certain things, and that actually ends up setting up a task for you and can cut down on some of that setup time and really cut down on the time of the whole process of submitting changes. So if you've got farm policies out there that you're making changes to, if you know you're going to be writing farm business, I would really encourage you to explore that. They spend a lot of time on it, and it truly is very user friendly. So I always try to make a pitch for that. Yes, I just saw that question pop in. You can still email changes as well. Let me get into my test quote. There's all kinds of test quotes out here. I saw a question. So we do have, let me make a note of that here. There is a demonstration that I can send you a link to. So let me include that as my follow-up. Yes, we do have a demonstration for that. Good question. Okay, so this is a quote. Now, the first thing that you're going to see, I already have this going. The first thing that you're going to see when you start a quote is this screen right here. You're going to put in your 5-digit agency code, and then you're going to select a producer from this dropdown. It will ask you for an underwriter ID. You can just put anything in there to get it to bypass this, and then when your underwriter looks your quote over, they will put their underwriter ID in there. Now, account effective date, this will automatically pre-fill to a 12-month term. One thing to note about this screen is the states of operation. If you are quoting a risk that spans multiple states, you would want to select all those states from this dropdown. So if you had something that was in Iowa and Illinois, you do both states here. And today, for these purposes, I'm just going to do something that is in one state, but that is where you would select that. Then your product selection, I'm just going to show you quick a farm and an umbrella. But this is where you would select any products that you wanted to write. As you can see, some of them are underwriter required. Underwriting needs to be involved to not only rate these policies, but approve them as well. So once you save that, it will take you out to this account setup page where there's more things to fill in. Now, if you need to get back into that, maybe now you've quoted the farm, but they want you to quote the auto, you'd edit setup, and then you could select business auto, and then it would add that line of business where you would go in and quote that. It's asking me, thinks I'm removing something, telling me it will delete all of it as if I remove it. Okay, so as we scroll down, then we've got named insured. I'm going to show you just a corporation today called Test Farm Corp. But if you need to add more named insureds, you just keep hitting that Add Named Insured button, select an entity. Now, like I said, in a lot of instances, or generally, we're going to ask for the insured's owner-occupied dwelling. And so if we're writing the owner occupied dwelling, maybe the farm's in the name of a corporation or LLC, we're wanting to give personal liability to these individuals that make up that entity, and we're insuring their home. So you're gonna have a mix of maybe corporations, LLCs, and individuals. So just know too, when you do add an individual to the policy, you do need a valid social security number in order to get them added and to get that correct rate. Addresses, this is one of those areas that can be a little tricky that I wanted to show you. Oh, and also if you need to edit any of these, you got this pencil icon over here where you can edit this stuff. But I just made up this address. But what I wanted to show you was if you put an address in, and even if this address verifies, you will get an error here. And what it will highlight these three boxes red for section, township, and range. Now, there are times where you will need the section, township, and range. Maybe if you have a parcel of ground that's out in the middle of nowhere and it doesn't technically have a 911 address. But just know that if you do put a valid address in, you still will get this error. Now, what you can do is just put a dash in these fields like I did, and that will bypass it. So you just have to put something in those fields to bypass that. That's kind of a weird system quirk. It's been like that ever since I've been here. I'm not sure why it's still like that, but and as you can see here with these checkboxes, you can also, when you have multiple addresses, designate which of these maybe is the mailing, billing, primary. So if we maybe have insured lives in town or close to town, but the main farming location is on another location where that's where the buildings and equipment are, maybe you'd have the mailing and the billing going to the home address, and then you'd have the primary farming location be designated as the location with the building, equipment, and so on and so forth. So another tip at this point, I found it easier when I'm quoting policies to add all your addresses at this point. So if you have several, this is where I would add them. It makes it a little bit easier down the road than when we start adding property and things like that to these individual addresses. So I would keep using this button and add the addresses at this point. Loss information. So it's going to ask if the applicants had any losses associated with the lines quoted within the past 3 years. It's either going to be a yes or no. If yes, it's going to ask you for the number of losses, and then you can either manually enter those loss details if you have that information. If not, and you want to just send the loss runs into your underwriter, you would select this option. I will say that I don't think I had anybody ever use the manual entry option. Just got those loss runs via email. So I'll select no, since this is this is a clean account. It's just telling me it's going to delete any details I put in there if I change it to no. Then it's going to ask for year business started, so we do need that information on how long this farm's been in business. Has the applicant had any prior insurance with standard markets? So if they have not had prior insurance, then underwriting is probably going to have some questions for you. Has the policy been canceled or non-renewed within the past 3 years? If it's been canceled or non-renewed, underwriting is going to have some questions for you. Does the account present any driving exposures? So that's going to be, if we were writing the auto and we selected yes, the next screen would actually be the driver addition or the driver add screen. So you need all that information in order to add those drivers, dates of birth, driver's license numbers, things like that. One nice thing about this button, should the policy be added to an existing commercial or farm account, if you selected, let's say you got the situation today, we are writing the farm and the umbrella, and maybe 2-3 months down the road, they want us to write their auto, we can select yes, and we could put in our policy number for our farm and umbrella on our new auto quote, and it would then add that auto to that existing, so when it's issued, it would add that auto to that existing farm package, and then they'd be billed along together. So kind of a nice way to get everything packaged up at this point early on. Then it will ask you if farming is the applicant's main source of income, receipts, is the primary owner occupied dwelling on the farm premise, yes or no? And really what these questions are getting you to is what type of risk this is. So as I talked about earlier, we've got differences between agri-choice which is our main farm product, and Country Choice, which is our hobby farm product. So depending on how you answer these, it's going to try to throw you into one of those buckets. Again, if there's some gray area, or if it seems borderline one or the other, you can always ask your underwriter what bucket you think it should be in. Then we've got a disclaimer. We hit next. And we're out of our account setup and we're into our farm setup. So when we're in farm setup, it's going to ask us, it's going to verify effective date, farm states of operation, primary operation state. So if we had something that was in multiple states, it would ask us where that which is the primary state of operation that this farm is operating from. Coverage is represented, property and liability. Generally, we want to write both property and liability on our farm policies. Now, there are situations where you might have a liability only exposure or property only exposure. If you're looking to write something like that, I would get in touch with your underwriter early on and see if that's actually something that they would be willing to write. Next in our farm setup is our statewide conditions page. Now, this is another one that can kind of trip some people up, so I want to spend a little bit of time here. Now, what this page is trying to accomplish is getting how many locations are on the policy listed for liability purposes. So as you can see here, it asks number of additional insured households requiring personal liability, number of locations with only farm buildings, and then we've got some options for if you have rentals on the policy as well. The one thing to remember about farm policy is always know that one location is automatically considered covered. So if in my instance today, since I'm going to quote everything on one location, I technically don't have to put anything in any of these boxes. But let's say with the example I gave before, where I have a house that's in town, that's where the insured lives, and then I've got the farming location outside town with buildings, equipment, I would put a 1 here. That is then indicating that I have 2 total locations. Let's say in addition to that, I have a seasonal home that I'm also insuring, a lake house on this policy. I would put a 1 here. That's really designating then that I have 3 locations. So, and so on and so forth. Maybe I have, 3 locations with farm buildings that are separate. This would then show that I have a total of 5 locations. So hopefully that makes sense. And it works the same way, obviously, if we're looking at rentals and things of that nature. But for today's purposes, again, since I'm only writing everything on 1 location, I don't need to put anything here. It will also ask if any livestock is owned, rented, or leased by the applicant. What we're doing here is listing livestock for liability. If we need to schedule or blanket livestock for property coverage, we'll do that a little bit later on. So if the insured has livestock, we put in the total, and then we'll ask the number of primary. So I put in here 100, that they have 100 head of cattle, and that they have 25 horses, which satisfies this total requirement right here. Now, there are only a maximum of 2 line items with this. So if you have a risk that has several different types of livestock, you might need to just do your best with these parameters to kind of adequately show what that livestock exposure is. All right, limits and deductibles. So now we are looking at liability. As you can see here, you've got a drop down for liability. Now this usually defaults to 500,000. This is going slow. So this defaults to 500,000, but I will inform you that most, if not all, states have now moved to a $1 million underlying liability requirement if you have an umbrella. So I switched this over to $1 million. And then if you scroll down, here's your MedPay coverage. Scroll down, we've got our deductible defaults. So we can actually select a deductible default. I threw 2,500 in there. So every piece of property that I generate on this quote will have a $2,500 deductible. And I can still change that from within each of those items. There's actually more options with that down here. You can expand this and select deductible defaults for different classes of property. So farm buildings and structures. Let's say I had to, the example that somebody asked about with confinements. Let's say I have a lot of confinements. I know underwriting is going to want a higher deductible on those. I can select a deductible here that will generate for each farm building I add to the policy. And you can still further customize these deductibles within each item, but this is a way that can maybe save a little bit of time depending on what type of risk you're looking at.
Man, I have a question for you. For myself, do these questions coordinate with the Ag Accord apps, or is it a specific nationwide app that we can gather this kind of information?
So I think a lot of it probably corresponds with an Accord. We do have a farm application, a blank one. Let me make a note to include that as well. So the blank farm app is good at kind of gathering this information, and also at the end of the, before you even submit, then you get to your app questions, and it captures all of that as well. So, there's some questions about, I'm trying to think of a good example, if there's any other type of businesses on premise and stuff like that. So I'll send a link app along that should capture a lot of this, help capture a lot of this info.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. So then earthquake, here we can specify our earthquake deductible. So if you've got something that's coming in the door that has earthquake, or you're looking to upsell, you can look and see what deductible options are available. I will say that underwriting does need to run a report to make sure that earthquake is eligible. So I would make sure that they do that as sooner rather than later, so you can see whether they're eligible for the coverage. Backup of sewers, drains, and sump pumps, and select a limit for that here. We also have this is newer. We can offer that in outbuildings. There's more and more people are putting maybe a bathroom or something in an outbuilding, so we can offer that coverage there as well. Right here, what we're doing is we're just selecting limits and defaults. I'll show you here in a minute how we actually go about adding these coverages to the policy. All right, so when we get to the location screen, I only have one address here listed. Now, if I had entered all those addresses at the beginning, like I mentioned, those would all be here in this dropdown, which that's kind of nice and makes it a little bit easier, like I said. If you do need to add new locations, though, you can still do it from within this screen, but I've just kind of found that it's a little bit easier to do it up front. Now, when we are deciding or adding things to a location, it's going to ask us what the number of acres are, and then what types of exposures are being quoted. So we can check, whether we have our house, scheduled personal property, farm buildings and structures, farm personal property, and rec vehicles. I'll try to quickly show how to do each one of these, but one thing that gets asked a lot too is just about liability only locations, just locations with acres, pasture ground. So we do want those reflected here as well. What you would do is just, you'd add that new location, select your address from the drop down, put in the acres, and then you just wouldn't check any of these boxes. But we do want those locations accounted for as well from a total acres standpoint. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'll jump into the residences. As you can see, it's kind of, if you're noticing here on the left, it's kind of an easy way to navigate. So once you check all those boxes on a location, these will populate underneath that location address. So it's kind of a quick and easy way to just jump around when you're quoting. So residence type, dwelling, we've got options for townhouses, outbuildings with living quarters, mobile homes. Occupancy, like I mentioned, we do want that owner-occupied primary residence, but we can do rentals. So if we're doing a tenant or landlord, seasonal, like I mentioned earlier in my example. If you've got anything that has these two, either under construction or vacant, you're looking to insure, you'll need to get with underwriting to see if that's something that they can do. Coverage is represented, household or structure and household personal property. We can do structure only. That'd be, if you're doing that rental, you're not covering any personal property in there, or household personal property only. So this would be maybe our insured rents from somebody else. This would maybe make the policy a little bit more like an HO4 renters. Then we ask some of those typical questions: year built, construction type, total area, roof type, auxiliary heating. So if they have a wood stove, wood furnace, one of those types of systems, we'd want that captured here. Underwriting will ask for a questionnaire and photos to make sure that that was installed properly. Structure type, for anybody that's unfamiliar with type codes, and kind of this goes back to what I mentioned about condition and construction of buildings. Type codes are going to be more of a rating tool, and underwriting is going to maybe use these to maybe get a little bit more rate for a home that isn't in the best shape, but maybe is still okay and insurable. So, generally, your owner-occupied dwellings are going to be type 1, but maybe we've got something where the roof is kind of bad or siding's pretty bad, and but we're otherwise kind of okay. We're otherwise okay with insuring it. That might be something that we do type 2, and we'll talk about the other coverages here in a minute. But maybe we're looking at type 2 ACV, something like that, until they get it repaired. That might be an option. Protective safeguards. So if they have central burglar, central fire alarms, this is where those discounts would be captured. Underwriting will ask for proof that those systems are in place. Under coverages and descriptions, you see over here, there's a drop or a menu with different package types. So what we can do is package our home and contents together. So to give really one rate. And the difference between those two is going to be, if you look over here on this box, it gives a description of each of these packages. The big difference between preferred and standard is going to be the year built. So for dwellings 35 years old or less are going to be preferred. Dwellings that are older are going to qualify for that standard package. Then we've got regular non-package. This is going to be for your rental properties or something where you're not obviously going to be adding personal property. Substandard non-package, I've never seen that used, but under coverage A structure, you can describe the property. So these description boxes can come in handy if you've got a risk that maybe we're insuring a bunch of people's houses. You can kind of differentiate which is which, obviously. Limit. There's a replacement cost estimator button right next to it. So you could do a cost estimator here if you wanted to. If you're just trying to get through the quote, you might want to wait to do that till later. Now, if you need to get into the replacement cost tool again later, you could get back in your quote and access it, or maybe you've already submitted that quote and you need cost estimators. Under tools out here on Agent Center, you see this cost estimator button. You've got farm residents and agricultural buildings and structures. So you can get back into it that way as well. All right, so then we've got valuation. You've got replacement cost, ACV, extended dwelling replacement cost, functional. Cause of loss, we were talking a little bit earlier with somebody who talked about confinements and whatnot. So we have 3 cause of loss forms. We've got basic, broad, and special. This one's special broad. Special for the house, broad for perils. Didn't see that used very often. And then fire legal liability for a building that an insured might rent that they need some fire legal liability for. But so depending on the condition of a building or a dwelling, you might have more of a conversation with underwriting about type, valuation, what cause of losses they're comfortable with. So coverage C, household personal property. So when you package your contents and your dwelling together, you get an automatic 70% of that coverage A limit for your coverage C limit. So you can see that included here. Now, if I need additional, I can select that. And then my cause of loss follows that, but I could select ACV here if for some reason I wanted to. Then under this options tab, this is where I start adding some of those coverages that I selected defaults for earlier. So I can select coverage for backup of sewers and drains. I can select the earthquake coverage that I specified a deductible for. We also have some other coverages that I kind of pointed out here, but in the interest of time, I'll send a couple of those more popular endorsements. We have some good marketing sheets on those that give a good comparison of what they show or what they give on top of the base policy. I'll probably send those along as follow-up as well, since we write a lot of that. But that's where you can add different endorsements for just the dwelling. Under scheduled personal property, if they have jewelry or guns that they want to schedule, you can select different categories here. And when you do that, you can see the categories that we've added. I've got a jewelry category, I've got a guns category. So when you need to add a new article of, or like a new gun, I click add new article. If I need to add a new category, I would click up here for add new SPP category. So one thing to note about this, in the interest of maybe if you've got a policy you're quoting and just looking to save time, underwriting and claims will want a full inventory of these types of items. But if you're just trying to get a quote, this isn't necessarily going to fly with underwriting and claims if you submit just a gun collection for 10,000. But if you're just trying to get a figure, if you put the total here for your schedule, you will get the appropriate rate. So I just wanted to point that out. If you're just trying to get a quote, see what the price is and save some time, you can do it this way just to save some time there. All right, farm buildings and structures is next. So the first thing you're going to see is this category drop down where we've got barns and livestock buildings. So your traditional barns, confinements. We've got silos, grain buildings, and grain structures. So your steel grain bins, grain complexes, some of the things that go along with those, dryers, grain legs. And then we've got miscellaneous buildings and structures. So that's the one I'm going to show you here. So when you select one of those, then you're going to see this class drop down populate that'll show you all the class codes that are associated with these categories. So the main one I wanted to show you today was, and as you can see, there's a lot of different things in here. So you might need to do some exploring to find what you're looking for at first. But I wanted to show you this farm building not otherwise classified because you'll use this class code more often than you think. And one of the things I mentioned earlier about having quotes come in that seemed high, this category, if you go through these categories and class codes, you won't see a class code for like a metal storage building or like a pole barn. There's no class code for that. So a lot of that stuff falls under this. It's farm building not otherwise classified. So I saw a lot of these buildings, metal equipment storage, pole barns come in as barns, like a traditional barn. That class code is significantly higher than this one. So just making sure that those types of buildings are classified correctly can lower your premium quite a bit if you're coming in with those under the barn class code. So then we're looking at the same kind of typical things: year build, occupancy, construction type, size, roof type. There can be auxiliary heating in these, so underwriting might ask about it. Your type code, protective safeguards, coverages description. So I just typed in that that's an equipment storage building. Limit, you've got a replacement cost option again, like you did with the dwelling. Valuation, cause of loss. You can see there's a bunch of these down here. If you scroll down this, there will be a list of all of the buildings I've added. The reason there's so many of these is I wanted to show you that there's a button up here, copy current. Now this exists for buildings as well as farm personal property. So if you've got a lot of the same type of thing, you can get a building maybe the way that you want it, then hit this copy current button and it'll just make an exact duplicate of it. So if you've got 10 confinements, get one entered the way that you want it and hit copy current 9 times, and then there's your 10 buildings. So that can be a big time saver. And then you can get into each building and maybe you need to change a year on one or something like that. It's easier than starting over from scratch every time. Under options for farm buildings, you'll see earthquake, disruption of farming operations, loss of farming income. Those are our business interruption coverages for farm. Cosmetic loss exclusion. You'll see a lot of different things out here under the options tab to make note of. Under farm personal property, the first thing it's going to ask you is if you want to add a scheduled item or if you want to add an unscheduled farm personal property blanket. So we'll do both. Under farm machinery, well, you see these categories, same thing as kind of on farm buildings. You click a category and then your class code drop down changes to what is under that category. So under farm machinery, you've got tractors, machinery other than tractors, which would be something like a sprayer, combines, harvesters, cotton pickers. Under farm products, you're going to see class code drop down for like harvested grain, hay, seeds. Under livestock, you'll see cattle, equine, miscellaneous scheduled farm personal property. There's a lot under there, including things like GPS equipment. Irrigation equipment will populate things like center pivots, permanent and portable well motors. I'm just going to simply show you a tractor today, but so you got, once you select that, then you've got to add some details to your year, make and model, limit, valuation. So one thing to note is that for machinery that is 6 model years or newer, we can add replacement cost to those. You will not see that as an agent on this screen, though. You'll have to let your underwriter know that you want to add replacement cost to items that qualify for that. And you know, they're going to review your quote, so they'll be able to switch that stuff over for you. Then let's say I added that tractor. I'd add new up here for a new piece of property, and then I select unscheduled to add a blanket. I actually have a blanket down here. Nice thing about the blanket is there's 3 main blanket class codes. We've got no livestock, one where livestock makes up less than 50% of the blanket total, and one where livestock makes up 50 to 75% of the blanket total. So I selected the one with some livestock on it since we added that earlier. Basically, all we have to do is put in this description, a limit. There is no replacement cost on the blanket. So if you have machinery on there that you know you're going to want to have replacement cost on, you'll have to get that switched over and scheduled. But this is all you really have to do, and then you've quoted your blanket. Now, underwriting will ask for a blanket inventory when you submit one of these. So they will need that for 2 reasons. One, to make sure that your value is adequate, and another to make sure that there's nothing assumed being covered on that blanket that can't be covered. So there's things in the contract that can't be on a blanket, like cotton pickers, irrigation equipment's a notable one. That irrigation equipment has to be scheduled out. It cannot be blanketed. So, and again, like I mentioned, that copy current button exists on this as well. So just demonstrate, if you get a piece of equipment in there, a piece of irrigation equipment, you have a lot of them, use that copy current button to avoid having to start over each time. Under options, under certain things, you'll see different coverages as well. So under this blanket, I selected that I have livestock. So there's some options here for me for livestock freezing or smothering, and some livestock suffocation. So pay attention to what options are out there. There's a lot of different things based on the insured's needs and the characteristics of their account. Wrecked vehicles, so your side-by-sides, your four-wheelers, this is where you would add those to the policy. There are some options here. So if you're in the Northeast, you know, we can do snowmobiles that are used for farming. I've never had a motorcycle that was actually really qualified to be a farm use motorcycle, but I know that does exist. But more commonly, it's going to be an ATV. But year, make, and model, serial number, underwriting is going to require that. Now, for wrecked vehicles, when they're on premise, there's liability coverage. But when they go off premise, we have a coverage issue then. So we have to make sure we have these endorsed properly. So if they want physical damage only and this thing never leaves the premise, we have an option for that. If it does leave the premise, they don't want physical damage coverage, we have an option for that. And we have physical damage and off-premise together. So most of my agents always added off-premise liability just to be on the safe side. Then you add your physical damage limit, valuation. These can be replacement cost as well if they fit that age criteria. I know we're running low on time, so let me get through a couple more things. So when we then get past the RV section, it opens up our policy-wide options. So this is all of the endorsements that are available. AgriChoice Elite is one that's very popular that I was going to send along. This increases some of those additional coverages and coverage extensions in our farm policy. So there's a good document that kind of compares what this gives to the base form that I'll send along. But as you can see, this is segmented from property, liability, and some are a combination of liability and property. But, you know, we've got livestock elite coverage. So if you have cattle operation, this can give some perks for that. We've got an equine elite as well. So there's a lot of things to make note of here. Under liability, we have limited farm pollution. We have incidental hunting, tons of stuff in here. Custom farming operations, if they're doing some custom farming for others. So just a lot to make note of if, depending on your insured's risks and what they've got going on their location. So we get through all that. Here's our schedule of everything we've added. As you can imagine, that screen gets pretty big. Now we're to the umbrella. All we do at this point is we just need to put in a limit, a description, and then something in the premium field. Your underwriter needs to rate the umbrella for you. So I've had agents, they'll put in $1 just to get past this screen. Or, you know, if they know about what these run, usually they'll put something like that in here. Like I just put $250, but you've got to put something in there to get past that. And then your underwriter will manually rate that umbrella for you when they're reviewing the quote. So now we are at this quote setup screen. I mentioned some eligible farm programs earlier that you can, if an insured is a part of, that can give some perks. You'd select that here. If they have a personal auto policy with Nationwide and we're not writing a farm auto, we could put that personal auto policy in here and give them multi-policy discount at this point. But really at this point, we would hit this process quote button, assuming all of those are correct. And it will spit out some numbers. Maybe. It's thinking. All right. So this is showing us what the premium is that we put in there. Now, you as agents do have the ability to price, put some credits on your account. I wanted to show you that here real quick. If you hit that apply pricing modification button, and I already did that on that table if that looks a little weird. So you could select yes or no if you want to do any pricing, and then you can do a credit or a debit. I don't think I've had anything submitted with a debit before. But you as agents usually have leeway about 20% either way. So I just threw on there 10% credit, and then you'd process quote again, and then it would add this column to your table. Shows how much credit you added. Here's what your premium was. Here's what your premium is with those credits. So really at this point, this is where you would want to get in touch with your underwriter. You've got your quote number up here. You can email that to them. You can call them and talk to them if you want, and they'll look your quote over. They'll make sure I's are dotted, T's are crossed. If they have any questions for you on what you've submitted, you might have a conversation with them then. And also in regard to credits, they need to be able to justify the use of those credits. So you're going to need to be able to justify those credits to them as well. But really the last thing on this that I wanted to show was this proposal tab, where you can customize a proposal with your contact info and anything else. And then when you display that, it'll pull up a good file for you that shows everything we've put on the quote and the corresponding premium. Everybody can see that. So here's our total premium. Here's our liability items that we entered in the corresponding premium. Here's some of the endorsements we added with the corresponding premium. Here's our dwelling. Here's how much our dwelling costs. and so on and so forth. So that's a good thing to be able to take out to the farm, show the customer, email to them, save it to your desktop, and however you want to do that. And then, once you get the go ahead, then you would go through the application process, and there's going to be some other app questions that it will ask as well. And like I said, I'll send a blank application as follow-up that'll give you an idea of some of the things that would be asked at that end stage in those app questions. But otherwise, I think that is all I've got for you today.
Well, that is a lot of great information, a lot of great detail. Obviously, you can see why you're number one in farms. You really seem to have it all together. I did have a question for you on the return side, and I'm sure those of you that are writing with Nationwide Direct, I just wanted to be clear on this. Does this information download then? So if I sell the farm, quote, bind, issue, everything online, I set my account up in my management system, and all that information is downloadable, correct, with Nationwide?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, okay. I mean, I don't deal a lot with that directly, but, oh, did somebody say only farm property doesn't download? Is that what somebody's saying there?
Only the business, auto, and umbrella. And I know Jamie and we've gone through this a couple of times, and I wasn't sure if they, if new downloads became available, but if we can get our voice out there, it would be helpful for the agents to be able to have that information available. So maybe we can, if you don't mind taking that back, or you and Holly taking that back, and just letting me know and letting us know that would be really good.
Okay. Yeah, let me find out a little bit more about that, and I can definitely give that feedback.
Well, cool. This was great. Jamie, did you have anything else? And I know Holly has to jump off too. So I know we're running at the bottom, the top of the hour again, but thank you all for taking time out of your day, going through the workshop. I hope you found a lot of this information that Matt brought forward to you, invaluable, helping you with, those opportunities that you have within your agency, understanding the coverages, understanding the program, understanding the appetite, and having those certifications. I thought was a great opportunity for you to, right out the gate. Todd, I know you're looking to join our organization. So right out the gate, I think that's definitely a way to go, because this is an industry I know that you're looking to grow in. So, or in all of you, that are on with us today, or send your staff, to get certified. I think that would be great opportunities. So if anything you want to send me, Matt, as a follow-up with regards to dates and times on some of those courses, that would be great. Anybody else, if you have any feedback, I'll give you and share with you Matt and Holly's information as well. So you'll have their information to be able to reach out to them as well. So thank you all for taking time out of your day to learn more about farm. Matt, Holly, great partners of ASNOA. We really appreciate everything you do for us as well. So have a great day, everybody, and everybody stay safe.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Matt.